The Science of Better Conversation. Unlocking Connection, Trust, and Transformation. Introduction. Conversation as a Biological Imperative. Conversation is the invisible architecture of human society. It is the mechanism by which we negotiate power, express love, resolve conflict, and build civilization. Yet for a tool so fundamental, we often wield it poorly, leading to miscommunication, distrust, and fractured relationships. The modern challenge, from polarized politics to strained personal connections, is rooted in a failure to understand the science of how we talk. This extensive deep dive moves beyond platitudes and self-help advice to explore the rigorous psychological, neurological, and sociological frameworks that govern effective communication. By synthesizing the research from fields like conversational intelligence, neurobiology, and negotiation psychology, we can deconstruct dialogue into its core components and learn to harness its transformative power. The ultimate goal is not merely to speak better, but to forge genuine connection, build profound trust, and master the art of dialogue when the stakes are highest. The neurochemical architecture of conversation. The most profound realization in the science of conversation is that talking is a biochemical event. Every word exchanged, every tone used, triggers a cascade of neurochemicals that either build a state of mutual trust and safety or instantly provoke a primal threat response. The triune brain and the threat response. Judith. Glaser's Conversational Intelligence explicitly connects dialogue to the brain's neurochemistry. She explains that conversations are constantly filtered through our triune brain, the survival brain, reptilian. Focused on safety, this is where the cortisol and adrenaline response originates. Conversations perceived as threatening, judgmental, or dismissive instantly activate this primitive part of the brain, leading to the cortisol cocktail. The mammalian brain, limbic, governs emotions and memory. In a threatening conversation, this can lead to emotional hijacking, making rational dialogue impossible. The human brain, prefrontal cortex, PFC, the seat of rational thought, strategy, trust, and empathy. The goal of better conversation is to keep the PFC fully engaged. When the survival brain is triggered, the PFC literally shuts down or goes offline. This phenomenon, known as amygdala hijack, is the biological explanation for why highly emotional arguments feel impossible to resolve. The parts of the brain needed for listening, empathy, and strategic thinking are unavailable. The trust accelerator, oxytocin, and conversational safety. Conversely, high-quality conversations, those characterized by mutual respect, shared vulnerability, and genuine curiosity, release oxytocin, often called the trust molecule. Oxytocin activation. Glaser's framework shows that activating the PFC and releasing oxytocin is essential for moving from simple transactions to true transformation. This is done by creating conversational safety, a state where participants feel respected, valued, and non-judged. The feedback loop of trust. When two people engage in a level 3 transformational conversation, the mutual exchange of vulnerability and validation releases oxytocin in both brains, reinforcing the connection and making future conversations easier and more open. This neurochemical feedback loop is the biological foundation of psychological safety, a crucial concept in high-stakes dialogue. The Supercommunicator framework. Matching the type of dialogue. Charles Duhigg's Supercommunicators. How to Unlock the Secret Language of Connection provides a powerful, practical framework rooted in psychology and neurology. The realization that every conversation is actually 3 distinct conversations happening simultaneously. The secret to connection is recognizing which one is dominant and learning to match it. The 3 layers of conversation. Duhigg argues that disconnection often occurs because people are talking past each other, engaging in different types of dialogue without realizing it. The practical conversation, what it is, focus, facts, details, logistics, problem-solving, and transactions. Goal, efficiency and outcomes. What time is the meeting? Here is the data. The trap. Supercommunicators recognize that dwelling only on the practical can feel cold and uncaring, especially when the other person is signaling an emotional need. Trying to fix a problem when someone needs to be heard is a classic mismatch. The emotional conversation, how it makes us feel. Focus, feelings, empathy, vulnerability, and validation. Goal, acknowledgement, and resonance. I feel overwhelmed by the data. That sounds incredibly frustrating. The technique, matching. This conversation requires emotional listening, not offering solutions, but reflecting back the feeling. It sounds like you feel unsupported right now, and asking open-ended questions about the feeling itself. The social conversation, who we are. Focus, identity. Values, group affiliation, and social status. Goal, belonging and understanding the subtext of the relationship. Is this job a good fit for my values? Do you see me as a peer or a subordinate? The technique, the mirror. Supercommunicators use language to reflect and validate the speaker's underlying values or identity. For example, responding to a job seeker not just with facts, but with an affirmation of their goals. That aligns with the kind of dedication we see in our top performers. B. The skill of matching and looping. The core skill of the supercommunicator is looping for understanding, a process that ensures alignment across the 3 layers. Ask a question, elicit the information or feeling, state what you think you heard, repeat the content or reflect the emotion, ask if you got it right, invite correction. This process, repeated iteratively, guarantees that both brains remain in a state of open collaboration, maximizing the release of oxytocin and maintaining PFC engagement. Mastering high-stakes dialogue, safety, meaning, and conflict. When opinions diverge and emotions run high, a conversation becomes crucial. These are the moments when poor communication exacts the highest cost in broken relationships, costly decisions, and enduring resentment. The strategies for these scenarios are deeply rooted in social psychology and negotiation theory. A. Crucial conversations and the pool of shared meaning. Framework laid out in Crucial Conversations provides a step-by-step methodology for maintaining psychological safety when the stakes are highest. The shared pool of meaning. The goal of a crucial conversation is to get all relevant information, everyone's facts, feelings, observations, and experiences into a single, common pool of shared meaning. When this pool is full, decisions are smarter, faster, and everyone is more committed to the outcome. The silence-violence continuum. When a conversation turns crucial, people typically resort to 2 extremes: silence, masking, avoiding, withdrawing, or violence, controlling, labeling, attacking. Both tactics starve the pool of meaning. Start with safety. The authors stress that before tackling the problem, you must first address motive and safety. Maintain mutual purpose. Express the common goal. We both want this team to succeed, or I want our relationship to be strong. Maintain mutual respect. Apologize when necessary. Use tentative language, in my experience, and contrast to clarify intent. I don't mean to imply you're lazy. I mean to say I'm worried about the workload. This preemptive establishment of respect keeps the reptilian brain at bay. B. Difficult conversations in the 3 layers of story. Work from the Harvard Negotiation Project in Difficult Conversations provides a psychological decomposition of why certain topics become so charged. They argue that a difficult conversation is not one problem, but a simultaneous interaction of 3 layers. The what happened story, truth versus perception. The trap, arguing over whose story is right. The shift, moving from a position of certainty, you did this, to a learning stance. Help me understand how you saw that event. This involves realizing that the conflict is not about truth, but about conflicting, equally valid perceptions rooted in different information and past experiences. The feeling story, unexpressed emotion. The trap, stuffing feelings or venting them destructively. The shift, acknowledging, naming, and legitimizing feelings. It is entirely legitimate that you feel angry when you see this pattern. Crucially, this requires owning one's own feelings. I feel abandoned, rather than framing them as an accusation. You are abandoning me. The identity story, self-perception. The trap. The fear that the conversation will reveal something damaging about our identity. I'm incompetent, I'm a bad person, I'm unlovable. The shift. Recognizing that we are all complex, imperfect, and human. The conversation must be reframed as an opportunity for growth, not a final judgment on one's character. Managing the identity story is key to achieving vulnerability, the necessary precursor to trust. Fee. The hidden architecture of dialogue. Listening and articulation. Effective conversation is often less about brilliant speaking and more about masterful listening. Kate Murphy's You're Not Listening highlights the profound psychological value of being genuinely heard, while Alison Wood Brooks's work details the practical maxims for constructive talk. A. The psychology of active listening. Murphy's research demonstrates that true listening is a complex psychological skill, not merely the passive absorption of sound, challenging the myth of the good talker. Society often rewards the dominant talker, but the research shows that the most connected, trusted, and well-liked individuals are often the best listeners. Deep listening is an act of vulnerability and a profound gesture of respect that keeps the oxytocin flowing. The trap of preparing to reply. The most common failure of listening is that we are constantly preparing our rebuttal or next point instead of fully processing what the other person is saying. This engages the PFC on an internal task, starving it of the capacity for empathy and deep connection. Listening as a tool for empathy. Active listening requires asking why and how, questions that probe the speaker's motivations and feelings rather than just what, questions that collect facts. This process allows the listener to step into the speaker's worldview. The foundational act of empathy. B. The science of articulation. Talk maxims in talk. The science of conversation and the art of being ourselves. Alison Wood Brooks offers the Talk Maxims, a set of science-backed guidelines for managing our output in conversation. T. Topics. Choosing engaging. Appropriate and often slightly novel topics. Avoid overly negative or self-focused topics which can increase the listener's internal cortisol levels. A. Asking. Utilizing the power of follow-up questions. Research shows that people who ask more follow-up questions are rated as more competent and responsive, and are liked more. This is an application of the Supercommunicators looping technique. L. Levity. Injecting appropriate humor and lightness to release tension and small bursts of neurochemicals like endorphins. Levity, when used skillfully, is a powerful tool for maintaining psychological safety in challenging moments. K. Kindness. Being genuinely kind, respectful, and generous with attention. This is the direct application of the crucial conversations principle of maintaining mutual respect to optimize the neurochemical environment. The ultimate goal of the science of better conversation is to be able to access and sustain Level 3 dialogue. This requires shifting from I to WE, moving the focus from personal advocacy, my idea is best, to mutual discovery. What can we create together? Using discovery language. Employing phrases that invite curiosity and shared learning. What if we considered, help me see that from your perspective. What assumptions are we both making? Holding a space for generative conflict. Level 3 conversation doesn't avoid conflict. It uses it as a catalyst for innovation. By maintaining safety and trust, oxytocin, conflicting ideas can be explored vigorously without triggering the threat response, cortisol. Negotiation and life-or-death dialogue. The skills of better conversation reach their zenith in high-stakes negotiation, where a single conversational error can have profound financial or personal consequences. Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. Negotiating. As if your life depended on it brings the psychological principles of hostage negotiation into the business and personal world, demonstrating that conversation is a powerful tool for influence. Tactical empathy. Voss's primary tool is tactical empathy, the deliberate, active effort to understand the opponent's mindset, not to agree with it, but to understand its leverage. This is a practical, High-stakes application of the emotional listening skills championed by Murphy and Duhigg. Mirroring and labeling. Mirroring, repeating the last 3 words of the other person's sentence. This is a non-threatening way to encourage them to elaborate and provides the supercommunicators' looping function in a subtle, high-pressure context. Labeling, verbally acknowledging the opponent's emotions. It seems like you're frustrated. It sounds like you feel disrespected. This de-escalates the cortisol response by validating their reality, allowing the PFC to re-engage. This is a direct parallel to the feeling story component of difficult conversations. The power of no. Voss argues that getting a person to feel comfortable saying no to a proposal is paradoxically a step toward agreement, as it gives them a feeling of control and safety, thus activating the oxytocin pathways. Conclusion. The integrated science of connection, the science of better conversation, is an integrated discipline. It is a neurological challenge to maintain oxytocin flow over cortisol, a psychological challenge to manage the 3 stories of conflict, and a practical challenge to match the 3 types of dialogue. By mastering the science, by understanding the triune brain, learning the skill of matching, prioritizing conversational safety, and embracing the learning stance, we transition from simply talking at each other to co-creating shared meaning. The result is not just reduced miscommunication, but a fundamental shift in our relationships, our careers, and our ability to navigate the complexities of the modern world. Conversation is, in this sense, a continuous, transformative act of co-authorship,